We're in Cliftonville, just outside of Margate, and we're staying at one of my favourite hotels in the whole of England, the Walpole Bay Hotel. I'm with Jane, who is the owner and I'd say the custodian of the Walpole Bay Hotel. Jane, can you describe how your love affair for this place started?
No, it started a long time ago in the early 60s. Peter and I used to come down from the Medway towns, that's where we lived, and we were poor as church mice. And we used to come on the cheap day return to Margate, because everybody came to Margate in the 60s, it was the place to be. But we couldn't partake of all the things down there because we hadn't got any money. So we used to bring picnics and come along here to Walpole Bay, which is just down the road from us now, and picnic on the beach and swim in the tidal pool that's there and have the most amazing times. And we used to walk past this building, and it was like Oliver Twist with his nose against the pane, how the other half lived.
Yeah.
And never came in. Wasn't for people like us, but there were rich, posh people having the most amazing times here. And we saw them on the beaches. The kiddies had nursemaids and lots of beach games and sumptuous picnics they had. And it was how the other half lived, it really was. But the building was always left this wonderful, happy vibe, and people having happy holidays. And it's a lovely, lovely old building, as you can see.
So can you explain how you managed to pay for this building?
We didn't. It all happened when we heard that it was going for sale. We rushed home and we wrote this amazing business plan, made it all up because we hadn't got a clue, especially about hotel businesses and stuff. So we made up this business plan. It was all full of pretty pictures of us, and it said, don't invest in this building, it needs lots of work. Don't invest in this business. There are no trading figures since 1989. Invest in us, the Bishop family, because we're going to make this happen and restore Walpole to a former glory and form a family business to go down through the generations, just as the Budge family have done. And we've beaten them because we're on generation 4 now. Anyway, we managed to cobble together in all sorts of ways and loans from wonderful friends. And we got the deposit together, gave it to the solicitors. It was all going through. NatWest offered us a mortgage, and it was all subject to survey. Then the survey came back, absolutely damning. Said Walpole was beyond economical repair and needed demolishing. Margate had lost its tourist trade because at that time we were all full of refugees from the various wars, especially Kosovans and Serbians, and it was in the doldrums. And then they investigated Peter and I, and we'd never run a business, and you know. So they pulled the plug on the mortgage, and the bottom fell out of our world, as you can imagine. And we bought the letter from, did it by letter as well, not even in person, from the NatWest Bank. Gave it to Mr. Budge, who was the grandson of the lady who built it, so he'd been in their family from 1914. And we said, we've got to withdraw, Mr. Budge, we're terribly sorry, but look what's happened. And I think he must have known, because he and his wife looked at each other, and they said to each other, well, this is ridiculous. We think that you two are the people to get Walpole up and running again the way it ought to be, and we'd like to make you an offer. And he gave us this building for 5 years, total stranger, gave us all this for 5 years, but we had to sign a legal document to say that if we hadn't managed to pay him the balance, he kept our deposit, if we hadn't managed to pay him the balance by the end of year 5, we had to give the whole thing back, the whole business back to the Budge family, with no financial compensation for any monies expended. And our solicitor, Anthony Waddilove of Boys and Morn, walked out of the meeting and said, you can't sign that document, you're giving your lives away. The last 25 years, because it was our silver wedding present to each other, the last 25 years of your lives, wasted if you fail. And we said, well, it's the only way we're going to get Walpole, and we signed it, and he walked out.
And you mentioned there that the building's 1914, but possibly the most striking bit is a bit later, 1927?
1927. Yeah. All through the war they traded, because people came to Margate for the health-giving properties of our seawater, our sea air, and just being here is an amazing place to live. And they made enough money to double the size of the hotel in 1927. And that's when we got electricity. And that's when we got the most amazing lift you've ever seen, and it's still working. It's a 1927 trellis-gated Otis lift.
You've had lots of famous people who've come here, it's been used in film sets and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Probably the most famous is Tracey Emin. Can you describe again how that started, or if we can repeat it?
We're not going to repeat it all, no.
Okay.
But we've got this most wonderful veranda, and people come here and they just socialise on the veranda, and they have cream teas, and we built our reputation on our cream teas. We hosted her parties for her for 10 years. And so we met all the YBAs before they were famous, because they used to come to Tracey's parties here. And the most amazing experience, and they were all lovely, and they were so respectful, and they really were. So I was a bit concerned when we had the first one. I thought, oh goodness, because you read about things in the paper and see things on the telly, don't you? And people aren't like that in real life. They're just not. It's all hype. So they were lovely, and we did enjoy her parties, meeting all these people. And there's a thing in the restaurant. She's done so much to help us. We're preserving all the original Walpole things, because when we moved in, which is another fairy story, the reason we're still here, but when we moved in, it had been owned by one family all its life, from 1914 to we came in 1995, and they never threw anything away. So upstairs we had all these amazing cupboards full of all the original Walpole stuff. We've got the aliens register from the First World War. Can you believe that? 1914-18 war. And we've got all the guest registration cards going back to 1927.
You've got the napery, haven't you? Is the napery
oh yes, the napery gallery, that's amazing.
So that's totally, so this is not just a hotel, it's a museum as well.
Yep.
So I think Tracey opened the museum in 2001.
You've done your research on that,
some research, yeah. And
Yeah.
but she also, but the napery, I think the napery's, I mean, the museum's fantastic. But there's so much around memorabilia around this. You know, it is a museum.
Yeah.
And walking back in time, etc. I know you described it when we stayed here before. You said it's slightly bonkers.
Totally bonkers,
yeah.
not slightly, totally.
And but the napery as well. That's totally unique. So can you describe how that started? And,
There was a booking made by the Mail on Sunday. So we assumed that the person they'd made the booking for was a reporter, and he was coming down to do a piece on Margate 50 years on. And he walked through the door at 10 o'clock in the morning, and luckily I was actually in reception, so I did the meet and greet. And he fell in love with the place immediately, this chap. It was called Curtis Tappington, and everything was wonderful. The hotel was wonderful, the staff were wonderful, his room was wonderful. He had lunch, and his lunch was wonderful. Went off down to Margate to do his research for his piece for the Mail on Sunday. Came home, had a green tea, that was wonderful. Then he ordered his dinner to be served in the restaurant, and guess what? His dinner was wonderful too. But when it came to the coffee time, he asked for his coffee to be served in the bar. And at that, where the pianola is now, there used to be a Chesterfield, and he wanted to take his coffee there. Well, all the silver was polished beautifully, and the coffee tray was ready, so I took the coffee, and expecting him to say, "Oh, Jane, that looks wonderful," because everything had been wonderful since 10 o'clock in the morning. His whole attitude had changed. You really disappointed me, Jane. I thought, goodness, what have I done? He said, "What's the matter?" He said, "I would have thought of all restaurants, Walpole would have had linen sheets at dinner. Don't you have any?" I said, "Well, actually, Mr. Tappington, I've got cupboards full upstairs, but they've just put all the starched laundering costs up for our laundry. And if we use them all the time, we'd have to raise our prices, and that would preclude some people from coming, especially for the cream teas. So we've put them away, and we use good quality paper ones during the day, and we save them for high days, holidays, dinner parties and weddings and functions." He said, "Just get me one." Oh, goodness. I said, "You silly sausage, why do you need a napkin? You've finished your dinner." He said, "Just get me one." Customer's always right, so I bit my tongue, and I went upstairs to the third floor, to the linen cupboard where they were, got him one, had to take all the keys with me to get them, came down, gave him his linen napkin, went off and carried on serving with everybody else in the dining room. And half an hour later, he called me in, and he presented me with my napkin back. And he said, it was amazing, it was a pen and ink sketch on my napkin, and it was his view looking into the dining room, and there were two people snoozing after their dinner. It was their 25th wedding anniversary, and they were snoozing, and he caught them to a T, just a few strokes of the pen. It was amazing. And he said, "This is my magical memory of staying in your magic hotel, Jane, and I wasn't going to do it on a paper one." So there you are. And
how many now? How many?
325.
325
yep,
now.
Napkins from all over the world.
And you're happy for any guest to come?
If they've had a magical memory. We've got some sad ones as well, but if they've had a magical memory, they're eligible to do a napkin. And they post them back from all over the world. And the youngest is 4 years old, and the oldest is 102.
And also in the basement, you have the beautiful ballroom.
Basement? Lower ground floor, young man.
Also,
lower ground floor,
also
please.
the lower ground floor. You have the beautiful ballroom, but also you have got a unique, I think, probably snooker table.
Oh,
Can
yes.
you explain the story behind the pink snooker table?
The story behind the pink snooker table is that when we moved in, that was the TV lounge. And there were great big old armchairs and a tiny TV in the corner. And when my men saw it, my husband and son and brothers all said, "Oh, this would be perfect for a snooker room. I said, you're not having a snooker room. You can't take a whole room just so you guys can play snooker. But then Tony, my brother from Chatham Snooker Club, were actually refurbishing their premises. And they were selling their old snooker tables off cheap. Well, we hadn't got a penny to rub together. And so my brother bought it for us. And it was installed with its green base down in the snooker room. So, but it's multifunctional because when we have weddings, it's a walk-around buffet room. When we have private meetings, it becomes a meeting room. We can set dress anything for anything in Walpole.
Yeah.
And so it's multifunctional, so I allowed it to happen. But then one of the guests actually split the base at one point. And when we got up in the morning, the chaps from the retirement village across the road actually have had a tournament in a fortnight's time on the Tuesday evening, very important. And I said to my men, husband, son, brother, grandsons, everybody, we've got to get it recovered. Can you get it done straight away, guys, please, because we've got this important tournament week on Tuesday. And they said, we're too busy, you'll have to do it. I said, for goodness sake, I don't know the first thing about snooker. What do you mean I've got to do it? And each one said, and then it got to my son, Justin, and he said, Mother, we do everything else for you. You're going to have to do this. We are too busy. So I found a company. And I said, do I have to have green? They said, Madam, you're paying. You can have any colour you wish. I said, I'd like to go pink, please. And they said, are you sure? I said, oh, yes. So my men don't ask me to do their jobs anymore.
Well, thank you very much. And I think we're going to have some afternoon tea.
Oh, that would be lovely, yes.
Okay. And thank you very much for hosting us.
Oh, thank you very much for your interest.
The Walpole Bay Hotel is one of my favourite places to stay. It's my second time, and Jane and the team have welcomed me as if I'm a long lost friend. It's more than a hotel. Jane has this collection of all sorts of things. It's most unique. And it also has a napery, the only thing of its type in the whole world. But it's the friendliness, the way that you're welcomed into this place that makes it stand out above the rest. I love the Walpole Bay Hotel.